Emma had always been a hard worker. She had spent 5 years at Westfield Tech, a growing software company, dedicating long hours to her job. She never complained, never slacked off, and always gave her best. But now she needed help. She was 6 months pregnant. The pregnancy had been tough. Morning sickness, exhaustion, and constant back pain. But Emma still showed up every day, pushing through, determined to keep doing her job. She wasn't asking for much, just a little understanding from her boss, Mr. Grant. But Mr. Grant didn't care. One afternoon, after another sleepless night, Emma gathered the courage to knock on his office door. "Come in," his cold voice called out. Emma stepped inside, her hands resting on her growing belly. "Sir, I wanted to ask if I could adjust my schedule a little. Maybe work from home some days? The doctor said I need to take it easier, and—" Mr. Grant leaned back in his leather chair, cutting her off with a smirk. "Emma, we all have problems. If I gave special treatment to everyone with an issue, this company would fall apart." Emma swallowed hard. "But I've been here for years. I just need a little flexibility." He scoffed. "Look, if you can't handle the job, maybe you should take some unpaid leave. Or better yet, quit. I need people who can actually work." Tears stung Emma's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She nodded, mumbled a quiet, "Thank you," and walked out. She had never felt so small. The days dragged on, and Mr. Grant only made things worse. He started piling extra work on Emma, knowing she was struggling. He ignored her emails, dismissed her in meetings, and made it clear that, to him, she was replaceable. One day, after an exhausting shift, Emma sat in the break room, rubbing her swollen feet. Her best friend and coworker, Lisa, sat beside her, fuming. "This is wrong," Lisa said. "He can't treat you like this." Emma sighed. "What can I do? If I push back, I'll lose my job, and I need this paycheck." Lisa hesitated, then said, "Have you told your family?" Emma shook her head. "No, they have enough to worry about." She came from a wealthy family, but she had never used their money or influence. She had built her career on her own, proving she could stand on her own 2 feet. But now, she wasn't sure how much more she could take. That night, Emma sat on her bed, exhausted. Her phone buzzed. It was her brother, Daniel. "Hey, Em, how's work?" Hearing his voice made her heart ache. She tried to keep her tone light. "Oh, you know, same old, same old." But Daniel knew her too well. "Emma, what's wrong?" And just like that, the walls broke. Emma told him everything. How Mr. Grant had been treating her, how she was afraid of losing her job, how she felt completely helpless. There was silence on the line. Then Daniel spoke, his voice calm but firm. "He did what?" Emma sniffled. "It's fine. I'll figure it out." "No," Daniel said. "You won't have to. Leave it to me." A week later, something strange happened. Mr. Grant was in a surprisingly good mood. He walked around the office, whistling, bragging about a huge investor interested in buying the company. Emma tried to ignore it, focusing on her work, but then an email popped up in her inbox. Subject: Urgent, Company Acquisition Announcement. She clicked it. Her heart stopped. Westfield Tech had been officially purchased by Daniel Whitmore, her brother. Emma's hands shook as she read the email. Daniel hadn't just helped her. He had bought the entire company, and Mr. Grant had no idea. An emergency staff meeting was called. Everyone gathered in the conference room, whispering about the new ownership. Mr. Grant stood at the front, fidgeting nervously. The door opened, and in walked Daniel. Emma watched as her brother smiled politely and shook hands, but when he reached Mr. Grant, his expression hardened. "Mr. Grant," Daniel said, his voice cool. "We need to talk." Mr. Grant forced a laugh. "Of course! Exciting times, huh?" Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Very. But first, let's discuss workplace policies, specifically how you've been treating my sister." The room went silent. Mr. Grant paled. Sister? He turned, eyes wide, finally noticing Emma standing near the back. She crossed her arms, raising an eyebrow. Daniel pulled out a folder. You see, I don't just buy companies for fun. I invest in businesses that treat their employees with respect. And from what I've learned, you've done the opposite. I, Mr. Grant stammered. Daniel didn't let him finish. Effective immediately. You're fired. The room erupted into whispers. Mr. Grant looked around, desperate. You can't do this! Daniel tilted his head. I own the company. I can do whatever I want. Security arrived, escorting Mr. Grant out as he sputtered protests. Emma watched, a deep sense of relief washing over her. For the first time in months, she felt safe. A few days later, Emma sat in her office. Her new office. Daniel had given her a promotion, but more importantly, he had changed the company's policies. Paid maternity leave, flexible schedules, and a culture of respect. Lisa plopped down in the chair across from her. So, how does it feel to be the boss now? Emma smiled. Feels like justice. She glanced out the window, watching as employees walked freely, smiling, no longer afraid. Because she had won, and she had learned an important lesson. Sometimes, the people who think they hold all the power are just one step away from losing it all.